Welcome back to On the Market, York Region's radio real estate show. Over to my co-host and our real estate expert, Asif Khan from Remax Prime Properties, with today's guest, Asif.
Thank you, Tina. Joining us is Wahi CEO Benjy Katchen. Benjy, welcome back to On the Market.
Thank you very much for having me.
Benjy, great report about the overview of the GTA market. Tell us some of the highlights that Wahi found in this report.
Absolutely. Several of the highlights include looking at prices, number of sales, average days on market. What we found actually is, the number of transactions in the GTA year over year is down 17%. It's the region in the province of Ontario where prices are holding their own the most. For example, the median price for the year in the GTA is $970,000. It's only down by 5%, and when we compare it to many of the outer regions or other cities in Ontario, it really is holding its value. What we also found is that average days on market at 19 for the period is creeping up a little bit.
And what in terms of underbidding was found in terms of this survey?
So what we're finding in the month of November is a record amount of underbidding. We look at about 400 neighborhoods across the GTA, and we take any neighborhood where there's more than 5 transactions in a given month. So based on that criteria, there were 256 neighborhoods that met that criteria of over 5 transactions, and 239 of them, or 93%, were in underbidding territory in the month of November, and that's the most that we've seen through the entire year of 2023.
And Benjy, when you're looking at different areas, when you're comparing York region to Durham region or Peel region, what stood out in terms of overbidding and underbidding?
Well, it's a little bit of a tale of two cities in the York region specifically. There's one of the, we look at the top 5 underbidding neighborhoods. One of the trends we found of underbidding is they tended to be at higher price homes, by and large, above $1.5 to $2.5 million price range. There's one of those in Vaughan Kleinberg that was in actually one of the top 5 underbid in the whole region of GTA. It was underbid by $120,000. But we also found by the opposite that Buttonville in Markham, the first time I've actually seen it on the top 5 overbid list for the year, was $56,000 overbid for a median price of $1.75 million.
And do you think this was due to higher interest rates, or why were these areas found to be either underbidding or overbidding?
Well, first off, there's only 16 of the 400 neighborhoods were in overbidding, so it's very few and far between where we're seeing overbidding. The rare exception where we are seeing it tends to be areas where houses are more affordable, which leads us to the theme that we're seeing overall, not just in the GTA, not just in York region, but across Canada, is housing affordability is one of the challenges of our time. And it's particularly exacerbated not only by the supply shortage of housing, but also by the rapid run-up in interest rates that's making it harder for customers to either qualify or requalify at current prices. And that's definitely affecting where people are able to afford, affects where they're able to bid.
And Benjy, you said November transactions were down about 17%, which is it's a pretty consistent theme throughout the year. Transactions have been down for various factors, interest rates being one of them. How do you see 2024 playing out? Do you see a resurgence there of that market with interest rates now stable and potentially dropping? How do you think that'll play out?
We're actually seeing a little bit of an uptick of activity in the last 2 weeks. Wahi is a relatively young company. We're under 2 years old, and we've actually experienced the best 2-week period in our history over the last 2 weeks. I think it's a combination of factors that we're seeing, which is the supply is more than we've seen in a very long time, which has allowed days on market to creep up a little bit over that period, which is allowing consumers to actually have the selection of houses they want on one hand. But on the demand side, we've seen fixed-term interest rates fall a little bit. For the first time in over a year. We're seeing some insured mortgages, which would be what a first-time homebuyer would qualify for, at 4.99% or just over 5%, which is allowing the consumer that can qualify for that to get an extra $30,000 to $50,000 house. So the confluence of those two factors is, I think, leading to a little bit more buoyant market in terms of transaction volume. And I don't see any reason why that won't continue as we go into 2024.
Benjy, I just want to circle back to the underbidding side of this conversation. So that means that buyers are offering less than asking. Does that also mean that sellers are selling their homes for less?
It doesn't necessarily mean that they're selling it for less, because underbidding is a function of two factors. One, what is the asking price of the house? Mm-hmm. And two is what was actually bid for that house. In some parts of the city, there's a culture of listing at way below what the market is, hoping to get a bidding war. Others, in other parts of the city or other dwelling types, there's a trend or a norm for that region to price it more at asking. And some of this is a factor of which realtor is listing it and what their individual style is, what the relationship with their customer is, etc. That being said, when we see underbidding like this, it means for sure we're not in a bidding frenzy, although there is a little bit of multiple bids that we're seeing at certain price points in the market. But by and large, we're not in a bidding frenzy. It's consistent with what we're seeing with the days on market creeping up, buyers being able to take a little bit more time to find the right house, negotiate the right terms in the offer, and to a certain extent, be a little bit more of a stickler for the price that they're willing to pay.
Benjy, with the recent TRESA implementation into the Ontario market, we are now able to sell houses in an open offer process. And there's a lot of people waiting and salivating about being able to know what the other offers are and thinking they're going to get a deal. But when you look into markets that have already used this type of concept, you start to see that prices climb very quickly in an auction type of process. What are your thoughts on open bidding?
So we've built an auction tool that's the epitome of being able to openly bid. And if there's any realtors out there that want to use it, we have a tool that they can use to openly bid on houses. That being said, I think it's not necessarily the cultural norm in Canada for sellers to do that. And with the TRESA, the new Trust in Real Estate Act rules, it doesn't mandate that houses must be sold openly. It requires that sellers have the choice anywhere through the process to be able to open up the bidding or open up the hood on prices. And I think that if I were to bet, I think that we're likely to be slow to change. I think that, it's good for buyers, and I understand every buyer under the sun, myself included if I'm buying, wants to see every other offer. I'm not sure that every seller necessarily wants to open every offer up to every person that is bidding. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next quarters and years as this works its way through the market. We're there and on site as long as people want to use it. We have the tools to do it, but ultimately it will be the consumers that choose.
Benjy, as we conclude our conversation today, it's also the conclusion or the last show of the year for us. Can I ask you to characterize how you would describe 2023 in terms of real estate, and maybe take a look at 2024 as well?
So I would characterize 2023 as a return to normalization after the pandemic. It wasn't so long ago that we weren't able to do open houses. It wasn't so long ago that consumers who were cramped in their downtown condos were looking for more room to live and buying in the far outer suburbs. I'd say 2023 was the year where we were getting back to normal. People were back in the office again, or at least mixed hybrid work between the office and their home. Location, as it's always mattered through history, has started to matter again in terms of being close to the things that you value, whether that's family or office or entertainment or kids' sport. And couple that with the challenges, the very real challenges that consumers have had with affordability and those rising mortgage payments as interest rates have risen at a rate that we haven't seen in a very, very long time. So all of those coupled together, I'd say, have led to a healthier, more balanced market in 2023. 2024 will be interesting as we're certainly seeing some buoyancy in the last few weeks of this market. I would expect that in the springtime, a number of people that have been holding on to their places and not quite sure if and when they'll sell as the rates have risen so much, as they see things stabilize and get to normal, I expect that we'll see a lot more selection of listings. And what I also see is fixed-term mortgage rates. Even if the variable rates don't fall, I'm expecting that fixed-term rates, they've already started to fall a little bit, will make affordability a little easier for many consumers. So I expect 2024 to be a robust and balanced year.
Looking forward to that. Benjy, if our listeners want to read more about the reports from Wahi, where can they find them?
So I encourage your listeners to download our app at the iOS or Android stores, and they can access that and all of our tools, reports, and information on our website, www.wahi.com, wahi.com.
Benjy, thanks so much, and we hope to talk to you more in the new year.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Asif. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you. When we come back, your real estate questions. This is On the Market on 105.9 The Region.
Need to connect with Asif Khan from RE/MAX Prime Properties? Call him 416-985-KHAN. That's 416-985-5426. Or email asif@thehomeshop.ca. Now back to On the Market on 105.9 The Region.
Welcome back to On the Market. Your questions for Asif Khan are next. And we begin with Steve in King. He wants to invest in a pre-construction condo and is asking for your take, Asif, on the market in York Region compared to Toronto in terms of price per square foot, maintenance costs, and square footage. Asif.
So the price per square foot in York Region is definitely a lot lower than what you would pay in Toronto. In the Toronto, in the core areas, you're paying about $1,800 a square foot to $2,000 a square foot for the better buildings right now and the better builders. In York Region, you're probably around $1,200 to $1,400 for the good buildings. Now, there's a lot of great opportunities in York Region around the Vaughan subway stations, the downtown Markham area where York University is coming up. So there's a lot of really good opportunities, even up the Yonge Street corridor in Richmond Hill, because eventually the subway is going to be coming there. So there's a lot of money to be made in that area in the future as well. So lots of great opportunities. Maintenance fees are generally a little bit lower. In York Region, you're probably going to be about 10 to 15 cents per square foot cheaper than what they are in the Toronto area right now. And then the other big consideration is parking. So a lot of the buildings in Toronto will not allow you to have parking if you have a one bedroom or smaller. And by that, it could be a bachelor unit or a small one bedroom. And parking isn't even allowed to be purchased with those units. But if you're in the 905, now you have an opportunity that maybe you can get a parking spot for $35,000, $40,000, where downtown Toronto, in some of the bigger buildings, you're paying about $75,000 to $95,000 for a parking spot. So lots of opportunities in York Region that would definitely make it more affordable. And when it's more affordable, now you can rent these out if you're an investor and make some money on them rather than having to keep putting money in. And those are the main differences right there.
I'd like to pick up on a point that you mentioned there about parking in downtown Toronto. So a parking spot is not necessarily purchased with the condo in downtown Toronto if it's smaller than a one bedroom?
Yeah, they're not allowing, because there's a limited number of parking spots, and they're not allowing the smaller units to purchase parking spots. So you have to be a one in den, and in some buildings you have to be over a two bedroom in order to purchase a parking spot. And then again, there's limited parking spots. So if you go in and want to purchase a parking spot for a smaller unit, you're going to be on a waiting list to make sure that everyone in the larger units get their parking spots first.
And if Steve is considering an investment in a pre-construction condo, should he also anticipate a delay in the closing date or date of possession of the property?
Yeah, right now they're facing a lot of delays. There's some issues with some builders with their financing. But the main thing is they don't have enough trades to go in and complete these projects. So we've seen delays between a year to almost 7 years in some areas of the Golden Horseshoe. So there's a building in Burlington that's about 7 years behind. There's, there was a building in Stouffville that was around the same. It was about 7 years behind. But there's a lot of builders that are actually canceling projects right now because the price that they sold these units for 4 years ago or 5 years ago, it's just not feasible for them to build. So we're seeing a lot of that as well. So make sure that you're speaking to a realtor and getting the scoop on the builder as well as the building and layouts and costs. And that way you'll be prepared to go in and purchase this unit without stress.
Our next question comes from Beth in Richmond Hill. She is purchasing a townhome in Vaughan and wants to know your thoughts on if those builder upgrades are worth the money. Asif, what do you think?
It depends on the upgrades. There's certain upgrades that you want to pay for because they're too hard to do later on, like a rough-in for a bathroom in the basement. You want the builder to do that, so it's well worth the money. But then there's some upgrades that you'll see what prices the builders are charging and say, I could do this prior to moving in, after I take possession, prior to moving in, like maybe hardwood flooring or granite countertops. It really depends on the cost that the builder is charging. And if they're feasible or if they're cost effective, then I would go ahead and get it done because then you're just moving right in. But if you do have the time, maybe a month or two after you take possession to do some upgrades yourself, you'll save a lot of money. But there's some upgrades that you want done by the builder before the drywall goes up or before the concrete is poured. You want those already in place.
So a rough-in for a bathroom, an additional bathroom, might be worth the investment. But what about those upgrades that includes a choice of tiles, for example? What do you think about that?
Well, again, it's personal taste. There's a few packages that the builders will offer that will include your floor tiles, your wall tiles, and then maybe some countertops like bathrooms and things like that. That may not be too bad, but if you're considering doing major stuff like kitchen cabinets and things like that, it may be too expensive for the builder to do it, but that could be something that you do later. Appliances, that's another thing that a lot of builders may throw in, basic appliances. So you can actually go and negotiate with the supplier of those appliances to upgrade before the appliances are delivered, and that's a good thing to do as well. Putting in for the conduits for wiring, if you wanted to have a wall mount TV, things like that the builder can get done prior to the drywall going in. That's always good because it'll help you out in the long run. Central vac rough-in, that'll help you out as well. So lots of things that are behind the walls or have to be done when the concrete is being poured, like the plumbing for the rough-in. All of that stuff I would say are great upgrades. And then if you wanted to do some cosmetic stuff, sometimes the cosmetic stuff is cheaper aftermarket.
Thank you, Asif. Great suggestions there. As a reminder, if you have questions for On the Market, hit send anytime to info@1059theregion.com. But Asif, if our listeners prefer to contact you directly, how can they do that?
They can always reach me by cell, 416-985-5426.
If you missed any part of our show, go to 1059theregion.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. And this is our last show of 2023. We wish you a happy, healthy, and prosperous 2024. Join us again on January 6th. I'm Tina Cortez. For Asif Khan, thank you for listening.
Need to connect with Asif Khan from RE/MAX Prime Properties? Call him 416-985-KHAN. That's 416-985-5426. Or email asif@thehomeshop.ca.